Before we begin, I want to give a quick disclaimer. The following episode contains detailed descriptions of real-life events related to extreme beliefs and dangerous practices, including discussions of starvation, dehydration, and death. Listener discretion is advised, especially for younger audiences and those sensitive to topics of health and well-being. Hunger. It's a force we all know too well, an instinct that gnaws at you, demanding attention, making your stomach churn and your mind wonder. But there's a kind of hunger that goes beyond a mere craving. It's deeper, more intense, something that takes hold of you and won't let go. Picture yourself standing on the edge of that feeling, not just hungry, but desperate, where every fiber of your being is screaming for relief. Now, imagine someone telling you that this hunger, the one tearing through you, making your insides ache, isn't real. It's a test, they say, something to overcome. They tell you that food isn't the answer, but your breath is. Just breathe. The urge and the hunger will fade. But as you try to focus on the air filling your lungs, something strange starts to happen. That gnawing emptiness doesn't just stay, it spreads. It seeps into your muscles, making them feel heavy and sluggish. Your leg starts to wobble a bit, and suddenly, even standing still feels like a monumental task. Your emotion starts to twist too. First, there's frustration. Why isn't this working? Then, a creeping sense of panic as you realize the hunger isn't just in your stomach anymore. It's in your head, making your thoughts slow and sticky, like you're trying to think through a thick fog. You blink, trying to clear your vision, but everything seems just a little bit blurrier, like the edges of the world are starting to melt away. Your body feels like it's betraying you. The energy that used to be there, that spark that kept you moving, starts to drain away, leaving you feeling weak and shaky. Even your heart seems to be working harder, pounding in your chest as if it's trying to keep you upright. But you're so tired, so desperately tired that even breathing feels like an effort. Yet, despite all of this, you keep going. Because what else can you do? You've been told that this is the path to something greater, that you just need to push through. But as hours stretch on and your body grows weaker, the belief starts to waver. You try to hold on, to keep the faith, but it's hard when everything around you and inside you feels like it's falling apart. And you start to wonder, how much more of this can you take before you can't take it anymore? Welcome to Coffee Cat, where the lines between reality and the unimaginable blur. I'm your host, Nanette Liana, and tonight we're diving into the belief system that lured people in with promises of enlightenment, but instead led many down a path of darkness and loss. Lenny stepped into the room, her bare feet sinking into the soft, woven mat beneath her. It was quiet, too quiet, really. That kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something to happen. The air was still, but thick with a faint, cloying scent of incense, like someone had tried to make the place seem more spiritual than it really was. The walls, plain and blank, stretching on like some sort of purgatory. She stood there, fingers brushing the doorway, hesitating for just a second longer than she'd planned. But she moved forward because, well, she had to now. The sunlight poured through the window, warm and inviting, almost too warm. Like it was mocking her a little. After all, she was here to live in the sunlight, wasn't she? Lani set down her bag with a finality that felt heavy. Not that there was much in the bag anyway. She wouldn't need it. Not in this place. Not according to the rules she'd signed up for. She crossed the room, each step slower than the last. That wasn't intentional. Her body had just started moving that way lately. A little sluggish, a little lightheaded. She told herself it was fine, totally normal when you hadn't eaten any solid food in days. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, a steady slow rhythm like a clock ticking down. Or maybe ticking away. It was getting harder to tell the difference these days. Her legs folded beneath her as she sat on the cushion. It was softer than she'd expected, like it was waiting to catch her if she fell, which honestly didn't feel too far off. She let her eyes drift shut. The room disappeared along with a creeping ache in her stomach. The hunger was almost like a background noise now, like a hum in the distance that she learned to live with. Breathe in, breathe out. Slow, shallow, and careful. She was ready for the next phase, or at least she hoped she was. This was what she was told to wait for, the moment when the body realizes it doesn't need food anymore, just air, just sunlight. Sure, the others who had tried this before, well, some hadn't made it, small details, but she was different, right? She had to be. She'd followed all the steps, read all the techniques, trusted in the process, so what could go wrong? The air pressed down on her, like it had weight. Funny thing, air. It's supposed to be light, right? Something you barely notice until it's not there. But here in this room, with the faint smell of incense clinging to her nostrils and her thoughts slowly unraveling, it felt different, heavier, like it was trying to tell her something she just wasn't sure what. But hey, warnings were for people who didn't understand the bigger picture, right? That's what they told her. That discomfort was just the ego fighting back, clinging to the material world. And wasn't that what the whole thing was about? Letting go to the material, becoming one with the energy of the universe? Lani, breathe, just breathe. It's all part of the process. Verity stepped into the retreat house. The smell of sandalwood and damp woods mingled in the air like a forgotten incense stick someone had left burning just a little too long. The place was quiet. Too quiet, really. Like the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you're supposed to be hearing something, but you're just not tuned into the right frequency yet. She took a deep breath. Air. It was all about air, prana, life force, whatever they were calling it here. She had read the books, watched the interviews. Jasmuheen, the breatharian guru, with her serene smile and promises of life without hunger. No food, no water, just energy from the universe. And let's be honest, Verity was sold. Who wouldn't be? No more grocery runs, no more worrying about calories or toxins, just endless, clean energy straight from the sun and sky. Sounded perfect. She stabbed further inside, her feet pressing into the rough floorboards. There were other here already, of course. You could tell by the way the place felt. A kind of collective breathlessness hung in the air, like everyone had been holding their lungs for a little too long, hoping they absorbed just enough energy from prana to get through the next few hours. Verity dropped her back near a worn-out cushion, the kind of thing that had seen a lot of spiritual seekers come and go. She sat cross-legged, like she's seen in the pictures. The the air around her felt thick, like it was waiting for something, for her to transcend maybe, for her to stop thinking about how ridiculous this all might sound to someone on the outside. She glanced at the others scattered around the room. Some had been here longer, you could tell. Gaunt faces, eyes that seemed to have settled into the permanent half-lidded days, but they looked serene. At least, that's what Verity convinced herself. Enlightened, maybe. They had made it. She hoped she could too. Verity closed her eyes and settled into her breathing, shallow, careful, like she was trying to sip the air rather than gulp it down. That was a trick, apparently. Small sips of life force, just enough to keep you going. Her stomach growled loud enough that she almost winced. But then she smiled, just a little. That was the old her talking, the physical, earthly her. She wasn't bound by hunger anymore, or at least she wouldn't be. Jasmuheen wasn't always Jasmuheen. Once, she was Ellen, ordinary, unremarkable, but Ellen couldn't convince the world that humans could live on air. No, that took something else, something bigger, something divine. So Ellen became Jasmuheen, and with that transformation, she became the voice of a movement, a name with a weight, a name with mystery, and a name that told you she knew something you didn't. It all started small, like things often do. A whisper here, a talk there, promises of alignment that transcended the physical body. Forget food, forget water. The universe would sustain you. If you knew how to tap into the energy, and she did, of course, she was living proof, or so she claimed. People wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that there was a way out of this mundane grind of eating, sleeping, and living. And Jasmuheen, she gave them that belief, that quiet, calm assurance that if they followed her, they could rise above it all. First, there were the books. She churned them out like spiritual candy, titles promising secrets to transcend, to living without the shades of food and water. It wasn't just about what she was selling, it was about how she sold it. Every page dripped with the allure of a higher knowledge, something just out of reach for the enlightened masses. But not for her, not for Jasmuheen. Then came the interviews. She wasn't shy about media attention. In fact, she courted it. She glided onto talk shows dressed in flowing robes that screamed ethereal wisdom. The talk with a slow, deliberate calm and kind voice that made people lean in. She'd smile that serene smile as though she was just a step away from dissolving into the cosmetic energy she claimed to feed on. Then the hosts pressed on her. "Are you really not eating?" She'd answer without missing a beat. "Oh, I haven't had a proper meal in years. My body no longer requires it." And it worked. People were fascinated. They didn't care that every scientist on Earth said it was impossible. That wasn't the point. Jasmuheen knew how to play on the human need for something more. Her followers weren't just hungry for spiritual enlightenment, they were starving for an escape from the ordinary, and she was offering them just that, an escape from the body's demands. It's a dark thought, isn't it? How people, ordinary people, find themselves in something as a cult that preaches survival without food. You wonder, how does a person get to the point where they believe they can live on nothing but air and light? But it's not as far-fetched as it seems. After all, we humans are wired in strange, often unsettling ways. And the psychology behind it, let's just say the line between curiosity and blind faith is thinner than we'd like to admit. The psychology behind why people fall into cults has been studied for decades. Psychologists have a term for it: cognitive dissonance. It's what happens when you hold two conflict beliefs and instead of resolving the tension, you just ignore it. You convince yourself that the irrational thing you're buying into must be true, because the alternative is admitting that you made a terrible mistake. Imagine you're already told your friends, family, maybe even strangers, that you believe something as radical as living without food. To backtrack now, that would mean admitting defeat, and humans don't like that, so instead, they double down. But here's the thing, Jasmuheen's followers didn't start out believing that they could quit food just like that. Oh no, it was a process. First, you dip your toes in the water. Maybe you start fasting, or you try long meditative practices to align with your inner energy. You read books, attend workshops, get involved with like-minded people, and suddenly the idea of living a flight doesn't seem so absurd. You're surrounded by others who believe it. You've seen proof. And well, what if it's true? What if you can really transcend human limitations? Psychology Leon Fastinger's 1956 study on cognitive dissonance explained how cult members deal with the inevitable cracks in their belief systems. When reality starts to intrude, say you're feeling dizzy or weak from the lack of food, what do? Instead of questioning the belief, you justify it. Maybe you haven't fully purified your spirit yet. It's not the belief that's wrong, it's you. And in a group setting where everyone else is reinforcing their belief, the social pressure to stay in line is immense. But let's be real for a second, this wasn't just about spirituality. For some people, joining a group like Jasmuheen's breatharians was about belonging. We're social creatures. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And in a world that can be increasingly isolating, being part of a community with shared values, even radical ones, can be comforting. It's the same psychology that drives people into any cult, really. The promises of being special, chosen, part of a select few who just get it. There's also something called confirmation bias, a lovely little trick our brain plays on us. Once you believe in something, your mind starts to filter out anything that contradicts that belief. So when you're in the thick of a cult, surrounded by others who share your convictions, you start to see evidence everywhere that you're right. The occasional lightheadedness, that's just your body adjusting to the higher state of being. Your weight loss, proof that your body is shedding its early attachments. Stanley Milgram's famous experiment in 1960s showed just how far people are willing to go when they believe they're part of something important, something that could change the world. The participants in this study delivered what they thought were deadly electric shocks to strangers, simply because an authority figure told them it was necessary. In the same way, Jasmuheen's followers believed that living without food wasn't just about personal enlightenment. It was about proving something to the world, showing that human beings could transcend physical limitations. Her retreats were next-level marketing, isolated locations. She made sure they felt exclusive, mystical. Attendees were invited to experience her teachings firsthand, to learn the art of breatharianism, to feel the power of prana. The life force she claimed was all around us, waiting to be absorbed. These weren't just retreats, they were initiations. And then came the public challenges. Controlled environments where she could supposedly go days, even weeks without eating or drinking. She made sure to invite the media, to get the cameras rolling. Of course, there were always excuses when things didn't quite go as planned. Too much polluted air, not enough spiritual enlightenment in the surroundings, anything but the truth that the human body needs sustenance. But none of those seemed to matter. Her followers were already hooked. The media attention only helped her cause, spreading her message even further, planting the seed of doubt in society that was already skeptical of traditional authority. What if she was right and science was wrong? She wasn't just selling breatharianism, she was selling a lifestyle, a way of being that felt superior to the mundane needs of the human body. And she was the walking, talking billboard for it. Dressed in flowing robes with an air of untouchable serenity, moving through life as if she had already ascended beyond the rest of us. Prana. It's not just breath, it's life itself, the invisible current running through everything that lives, from the tiniest seed to the mightiest tree, from the newborn baby to the oldest sage. The Asians knew this. They didn't need science or data, they felt it in their bones. The Vedic texts, among the oldest sacred writings of India, were the first to name it prana, the force that fuels not just our bodies but the entire universe. It's not some mystical energy floating in the clouds, no. It's everywhere. It's in the air you breathe, beneath your feet, the sunlight that touches your skin. Prana doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It flows through you, through all of us, connecting the living with the rhythm of the cosmos. Every inhale, you're drawing it in. Every exhale, you're releasing it back into the universe. Simple, elegant, and yet utterly profound. And here's where things get interesting. Prana isn't a wild, uncontrollable force. Oh no, it's structured, precise. It flows through pathways called nadis, crisscrossing through your body like an intricate highway system. The Asian sages mapped out 72,000 of these nadis. Yes, 72,000. And through them, prana moves, fuels, and heals. But it doesn't just run free. No, it's guided by chakras, those famous energy centers that yoga and spiritualists love to talk about. Chakras aren't just trendy. They're Asian tools for managing prana's flow, keeping the body and mind in balance. And the balance, it's everything. Too much prana and you're like a car running in high octane fuel, burning fast, burning bright until you burn out. Too little, and you're sluggish, disconnected, barely moving through life. Asian practitioners knew this balance was crucial for physical and mental health, long before modern medicine was even a thing. They believed prana could be harnessed, controlled, even cultivated through practices like pranayama. If you've ever taken yoga class, you've heard about it. Deep, deliberate breaths designed to control the life force and keep it flowing smooth. But here's the beauty of it. Prana was never meant to be a mystical secret reserved for the enlightened few. It was for everyone. You, me, the person sitting across from you, we're all filled with it, connected by it. Every breath you take is filled with prana. Every heartbeat, every moment you were alive. Prana is there, quietly doing its thing. It's the air you breathe, yes. But it's also the food you eat, the sunlight on your skin, the earth under your feet. It's what makes life life. Without it, well, you're just flesh and bones. And every culture has known this in some form or another. The Chinese call it qi, the Greeks spoke of pneuma, the Egyptians had their own version with the ankh. The life force, the breath of the gods, the invisible thread that binds everything together, prana has gone by many names, but the idea has always been the same. It's what animates us. But here's the thing, prana at its core is always meant to be simple. It was never about grand spiritual awakenings or lofty enlightenment goals. It was about living, just living. Jasmuheen really made headlines, not for her peaceful philosophies, but for the twisted consequences of her teachings. You see, it wasn't the serene smiles or her calm, calculated voice that drew controversy. It was what she said, and what she did after what she said. She famously claimed that she hadn't eaten in years. Years. She said she had transcended human needs like food and water, living instead of pure energy from the universe. It was a claim so outrageous that people couldn't help but listen. The media couldn't resist, of course. They were drawn to her like moths to the flame, eager to poke holes in her impossible claims. In 1999, Australia's 60 Minutes took up the challenge. They offered to put her to the test. Could she really live without food and water? Could she survive on nothing but light and air, as she so promised? Jasmuheen, always confident in her answers, agreed. Of course she would do it. The test began. Cameras rolling, the world watching. For days, she was placed in a controlled environment. No food, no water, just the sunlight pouring through the window. But the third day, though, the cracks began to show. Jasmuheen's serene facade started to crumble. Her speech slowed, her movement became sluggish. Her body was failing her, and yet she insisted that everything was fine. Her excuse? The air in the room wasn't pure enough. It wasn't that her claims were false. Oh no, it was the environment. Always something external, always something else's fault. After 4 days, the experiment was called off. The doctors warned that if she continued, she would die. She wasn't transcending anything. She was just starving. Yet, even then, she maintained that under the right circumstances, she could easily live without food or water. All she needed was a cleaner atmosphere, she said. Something pure. The world, watching in stunned disbelief, wasn't entirely convinced, and yet the controversy only seemed to fuel her mystique. The headlines were damning. Gurus exposed, starving for the truth. But Jasmuheen wasn't fazed. She continued to preach, unbothered by the mounting evidence against her. People were still listening, people were still following. You see, it wasn't just the experiment that caught the media's attention, it was the aftermath. The people who believed her so wholeheartedly that they ignored their body's most basic needs. When people started dying, quietly at first, in far off places, away from the cameras, it wasn't long before the fingers started pointing. But Jasmuheen, she had an answer for that too. Those people weren't true practitioners, she said. They hadn't followed the guidelines properly. They weren't ready. It was always their fault, not hers. And then there was the time when she went further. In public talks, she brushed aside criticism with a smile, dismissing science and reason as though they were mere distractions. We have enough food to feed the world, but it's our consciousness that stops us from doing so. A neat deflection implying that global hunger was more of a mindset issue than an economic or political one. It was statements like this, detached from reality, that made her not just controversial, but dangerous. She wasn't just misleading people, she was reshaping their views of reality itself. In one infamous interview, she was asked about the starving children in Africa. Why, if living without food was possible, were they dying by the thousands? Her response was chillingly simple. They're not living in the right consciousness. Let that sink in for a moment. Starving children, their bellies swollen from malnutrition, and her answer, consciousness was wrong? That's the kind of cruelty that slips beneath the radar. It's the kind of cruelty that only surfaces when you peel back the layers of her serene exterior and see the cold indifference underneath. You could almost hear the serenity in her voice when she said, like she was imparting some ancient, untouchable wisdom. If you want to survive, you must follow the steps. It's all about purity. She wasn't talking about simple cleanliness or detox fad. No, this was something much deeper, much more selective. Not everyone was cut out for it. In fact, only a chosen few would even reach the level of spiritual evolution she promised. The rest, well, they'd fall by the wayside, as people often do when the stakes are life or death. And so she laid it out in that calm, soothing way of hers. The steps that would guide her followers if they were truly ready. The first step, detox. A nice gentle word for what it really was, a stripping away of the physical world. She didn't just mean cutting out processed foods or sugar. No, this was the removal of earthly attachments. Followers were to gradually wean themselves of food, starting with juices. Then, well, you know where this is going. But she never framed it like deprivation. It's not fasting, she insisted, and it's certainly not starvation. It was transition. Next came the environment. You couldn't just do this anywhere, of course. Your success, your very survival depended on being in the right space, a high vibrational environment, she called it. That meant no pollution, no negativity, no distraction. Rural retreats were ideal. Mountains, forests, places far away from the dirty, noisy world. And then came the big one, spiritual purity. This one was the cornerstone, the secret sauce that set the survivors apart from the strugglers. To live as she did, you had to be evolved. And that wasn't just about sitting cross-legged and chanting, though meditation was certainly encouraged. No, you had to be free from fear, free of doubt, free of all the things that make you human. Fear was the enemy, she'd say. Then there was the breath, pranayama. The control of breath was essential. Jasmuheen talked about breath work like it was some kind of magic key, unlocking the flow of energy into your body. She claimed that through meditation and breath control, you could connect to the universe, filling yourself with prana instead of food. It wasn't just a practice, it was survival. In her teachings, breath wasn't just a means to stay alive. It was how you fed your soul. Breathe wrong, and you wouldn't last. But if your body, your mind, and your environment were ready, you still had one more hurdle to jump: emotional and mental preparation. You had to be emotional stable. You must be clear. Skepticism, a sign you weren't ready. Those who suffered, those who stumbled, those who, let's be real, died. It wasn't the process that had let them down. It was their own minds. They didn't have enough clarity, enough faith. Oh yes, and faith. That was the final piece of the puzzle. More than any detox or meditation, faith was everything. Doubt is enemy. If you doubted, if you feared, you would fail. Not because the system was flawed, but because you weren't fully committed. She never framed it as something you might achieve. It was something that you either did or didn't. And the cost of failure, well, that was on you. But it was a neat little system she had built. Detox, purify, breathe, believe. And if it didn't work, well, you just weren't ready. Verity Lynn stepped out of her battered old car and took a long, slow breath. The air was crisp, the kind of Scottish air that seems to promise a cleansing, a renewal. Or at least, that's what she had hoped. The wind bit at her skin, but she barely felt it. No, this was all part of the process, wasn't it? The cold, the hunger, the emptiness. It was all supposed to bring clarity, enlightenment. Something more than the mundanity of everyday life. She wasn't here by accident. This remote spot near Lochdoon, deep in the Scottish Highlands, was where she believed she could finally reach that elusive state of transcendence where she'd been chasing for weeks. There was no room for doubt anymore. This place, isolated and silent, was perfect. No distractions, no noise, just her and the elements. It was what Jasmuheen had talked about: purity of the environment, purity of the mind. She had driven hours to get here, abandoning the comfort of her Glasgow apartment, the modern world, everything for this quiet, unrelenting wilderness, a place where the only thing left to confront was herself. She grabbed her worn backpack from the passenger seat, its weight familiar yet somehow lighter than it had been on other journeys. No food, of course, no need for it now. It was beyond that, where she would be soon enough. The log stretched out in front of her, dark and forbidding, reflecting the gray sky above. This was the place, the perfect spot to reach the next level. No distractions, no noise, just the silence she craved. She had done the reading after all. Breatharians had spoken of this exact thing, transcending the need for physical sustenance. It was all about discipline, mind over matter. She'd been following it for weeks now, slowly cutting down her food until she could feel it. Feel herself rising above the flesh and bone that had her always tied her down, or so she thought. Her legs felt weak as she lowered herself into the rock by the water. Nothing too bad. A little dizziness was normal, right? She'd pushed through worse. It wasn't like she was starving, not really. She was cleansing, transitioning. She could practically hear Jasmuheen's voice in her head, that calm, serene tone. The body is the temple, and once you free it from the earthly needs, you will reach a higher state. But as Verity sat there, her body trembling in the cold, the hunger gnawed at her. It was a familiar egg by now, but it was growing, spreading like something alive inside her. Still, she stayed put, focusing on her breathing, shallow, careful breaths. Air, life force, that's all she needed. Except her vision was starting to blur. The lock in front of her twisted into something less serene and more menacing. There was a sharp pain in her stomach now, deeper than anything she felt before. She tried to stand up, but her legs wouldn't respond. Hours passed, the pain became unbearable, and the silence, the perfect silence she had longed for, felt like it was pressing down on her, heavy and suffocating. Verity's breaths became ragged. Her vision blurred completely now, the world around her fading into nothingness. Her hands clutched at her stomach, but there was nothing left to hold on to. No strength, no clarity, just emptiness. And in the final moments, as her body gave in to the hunger, the cold, the isolation, there was no great revelation, no transcendence, just the quiet, cold truth settling in. The body cannot live on belief alone. Let's take a step back and imagine, just for a moment, what happens to the body when it's deprived of food and water. So picture this. The days start ticking by, and at first, everything feels relatively normal. It's a little uncomfortable, but normal. But as the hours stretch on, your body begins to do what it does best, adapt. It pulls from the reserves like an overworked accountant, carefully calculating how to keep you running on fumes. The first thing your body taps into? Glycogen, stored sugar. Neatly packed away in your liver and muscles. It's the quick energy fix your body reaches for, but this only lasts about 24 to 48 hours. Think of it like raiding the fridge for leftovers. Once they're gone, you're left with whatever scraps you can find. Now, at this point, the body gets a little more desperate. It's not giving up yet. It switches tactics. Instead of glucose, it starts breaking down fat. Sounds like a great weight loss plan, right? Well, hold that thought. This process, called lipolysis, breaks fat down into fatty acids and something called ketones. Your brain, always the resource hog, needs those ketones to keep functioning. But even your brain knows this is just a short-term solution. You're not built to run on ketones alone, not for long. And then there's the matter of dehydration. We often think about hunger first, but thirst is a whole different beast. The body's first move, conserve. Your kidneys go into overdrive, concentrating your urine. I know, gross, but true. To keep every drop of water in your system. But the longer you go without fluids, the more dire things get. Electrolytes, those essential minerals that keep your muscles working and your heart beating, starts to fall out of balance. You may notice muscle cramps, then weakness, and if it continues, heart problems. Now, let's say this deprivation continues day after day. The body has no choice but to dig deeper into its reserves. It starts cannibalizing itself. breaking down muscles to convert amino acids into glucose through a process called glycogenesis. It's like burning the furniture to keep the house warm. And the thing is, muscle isn't just for flexing at the gym. Your heart is a muscle too, and it's getting weaker by the day. At this point, fatigue sets in hard. The brain, starved of glucose and now relying mostly on ketones, starts to shut down. It becomes harder to focus. Confusion sets in. Hallucinations might even start as the brain's ability to regulate thoughts and perceptions falter. You'll feel sluggish mentally and physically, and decision-making, once automatic, becomes a grueling task. Your immune system, it's taking a hit too. Without the nutrients it needs, your body can't fight off infections. The tiniest cold becomes dangerous, as your body no longer has the white cells to fend off invaders. This is where things start to unravel fast. Infections take root, but your body can't respond. Meanwhile, your organs, especially your liver and kidneys, are starting to fail. The liver is overwhelmed because it no longer has the material to detoxify the blood. The kidneys, struggling with dehydration, can no longer filter waste properly. Toxins build up, contributing to acidosis, which is a dangerous buildup of acid in the blood, which starts damaging your tissues even further. And here's the kicker. Your heart, once so strong, is now faltering. It's not just the muscle wasting, it's a lack of electrolytes, particularly potassium. Without that balance, your heart's electrical system starts to misfire. Arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats, become more frequent until one day, your heart just gives out. At the final stages, your body is in hypovolemic shock. There isn't enough blood to keep your organs functioning. Your skin might feel cold as blood pressure plummets. Vital organs, especially the brain, the kidney, and the heart, are being starved of oxygen. Multi-organ failure sets in, and the body simply can't keep up with the demands. And then the end. It doesn't come with a bang, but more like a gradual collapse. Cardiac arrest or respiratory failure, those are the likely culprits. Your body has fought a long, painful battle, but without the nutrients and water it needs to survive, it finally surrenders. Sounds bleak, right? But this is the reality of starvation and dehydration, no sugarcoating it. The body is an amazing, resilient machine, but there are limits, and when those limits are pushed, the results are nothing short of devastating. Days passed. The log remained still, indifferent to the quiet tragedy that had unfolded on its shores. Verity's car sat abandoned, its tires half buried in the dirt, untouched by time. No visitors, no passing hikers, just the relentless rhythm of the highlands, a place where silence stretched on long and unforgiving. But eventually, someone noticed. A lone hiker, trekking through the remote landscape, spotted the car. It sat there like a forgotten relic, the kind of thing you don't just leave behind in the middle of nowhere. Not in the highlands, not unless something had gone terribly wrong. His curiosity piqued. He made his way down towards the water's edge. Cautious, but compelled to investigate, it wasn't long before he found her. Her body lay slumped by the rock, half hidden, as though she had simply fallen asleep. In fact, from a distance, she looked peaceful, almost serene. But up close, the hollow cheeks, the unnatural stillness of her limbs, and the airy absence of life told a different story. She wasn't sleeping. She had been there for days, frozen in a moment of quiet. Verity had died. Lani, she believed she was transcending. At least, that's what she told herself. She had followed Jasmuheen's teachings religiously, diving headfirst into the breatharian world, convinced that she could transcend her physical needs. No food, no water, just pure prana, that elusive life force that was supposed to sustain her. By the time Lani was found, she had been lying on the floor of a Queensland's home for days. There was no mystery about what had happened, not really. Her body told the whole story, even before the investigation began. A sunken look of someone who hadn't eaten in weeks. Lani hadn't been alone either. She had supporters, other followers of the breatharian movement who believe in the same dangerous nonsense. They watched her as she wasted away, convincing themselves that this was part of the process, that Lani was reaching a higher state of being. They didn't intervene, didn't call for help, at least not until it was far too late. The investigation that followed was brief but necessary. The coroner's report laid it all out. Lani Morris had died of dehydration and malnutrition. No foul play, no sudden illness. Just the grim, inevitable consequences of extreme beliefs pushed too far. Jasmuheen, of course, had her say. She denied any responsibilities, claiming, as always, that Lani hadn't been following the teachings properly. The air wasn't pure enough. The environment was wrong. There was always something, some excuse to distance herself from the very real consequences of her ideology. In interviews, Jasmuheen seemed almost unaffected, speaking with that familiar calm. It's not about the food. She just wasn't spiritually prepared. A convenient explanation for someone who built their brand on the idea that humans could survive without nourishment, if only they believed hard enough. The media picked up the story, of course. Another follower dead, another life lost to this absurd, lethal belief system. The headlines were the same as Verity's case. Woman dies after attempting to live without food. But the investigation went nowhere. Jasmuheen continued to preach and continued to claim that the deaths of her followers were due to their lack of faith, not the failure of her teachings. You know, it's funny how some people can talk their way around death like it's some minor inconvenience. Jasmuheen, she's one of those people. Every time someone died under the breatharian teachings, she'd wave it away with that same serene smile, blame the environment, or suggest they just weren't spiritually prepared, as if starving to death was some kind of metaphysical hiccup, not the body's desperate plea for help. But make no mistake, there's a body count. And these aren't nameless, faceless people. These were real lives, real tragedies, all tied to one woman's deadly delusion. Lani Morris was the first to make headlines, the unfortunate poster child for the dangers of breatharianism. In 1999, she died in Queensland, Australia, after attempting to live without food and water. Her death certificate read dehydration and malnutrition. Lani's daughter was one of the most vocal critics of breatharianism after her mother's death. In an interview shortly after, she said, "It was like she wasn't the same person anymore. My mother, she was strong, always in control, but when she started following Jasmuheen, she seemed lost. It was like her mind was somewhere else, like she wasn't really there anymore." Lani's daughter spoke of how hard it was to watch her mother wither away, how Lani became more distant and increasingly insistent that her suffering was part of her spiritual journey. "I miss the woman she was before all of this. I miss her strength, her laughter, and the way she used to care for everyone around her. This belief, this cult, it stole her from us long before she died." Verity Lynn, a 49-year-old woman from Scotland, took Jasmuheen's teachings to heart and set off into the Scottish Highlands to prove it. In September 1999, her body was found near Lockham after she had attempted to survive without food or water. She had left behind notes detailing her beliefs in breatharianism, convinced she can transcend human needs. Investigators found she had starved to death, alone in the cold wilderness. Verity's sister, reflecting on the changes she saw in Verity in the months before her death, described her as being completely different after she became immersed in breatharianism. She was always so rational, so enlightened, so intelligent. Then suddenly, she was talking about living without food, about transcending the physical world. It didn't make any sense. I miss her so much. I miss the way she used to light up the room with her ideas and her energy. She was so full of life, but in the end, it was like she was a ghost even before she passed. Ellen Grieve, a 31-year-old, also in 1999, collapsed during the breatharian fasting retreat in Australia. She had been trying to follow the strict regimen that Jasmuheen had outlined, believing that by depriving herself from food and water, she would gain some form of enlightenment. By the time authorities intervened, it was much too late. Ellen's body had already shut down from dehydration and malnutrition. Ellen's mother, heartbroken, said in an interview, "She was my daughter, but in the end, I couldn't recognize her. She had become so focused on the idea of enlightenment that nothing else mattered. She used to laugh, used to have this big, joyful personality, and then suddenly it was all gone. She was so sure she didn't need food, that she didn't need anything except air." Ellen's mother spoke of how hard it was to see her daughter waste away, her once vibrant personality diminished to a shadow of what it had been. "I miss her laughter, I miss her warmth. I miss the way she used to just be present in the world." This belief, it took all that away. An elderly woman, Ruth Simone, died in 1997 in Switzerland after trying to live in prana alone. Ruth had been under the guidance of another breatharian follower who supported Jasmuheen's teachings. Her death from starvation and dehydration shocked local authorities, but the breatharian community insisted she simply wasn't prepared enough, that she hadn't followed the steps correctly, as if the fault laid within Ruth, not the ideology. Though Ruth's family kept mostly private, a close friend who had known her for decades shared her thoughts in an interview. "Ruth was always someone who searched for meaning, but this wasn't meaning. This was madness. I watched her change, watched her fade away, and it was like she was living in another world. She stopped caring about the things she used to love, like garden, her books, her family. I miss her quiet presence. I miss the way she could make you feel calm just by being around her. She was so gentle, but in the end, that gentleness was twisted into something dangerous." Timo Degen, a 31-year-old kindergarten teacher from Munich, tried to survive on light and air after reading Jasmuheen's work. In 1997, after only a week of attempting the diet, Timo fell into a coma. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors were baffled by his condition. His organs had begun shutting down. After several days in the hospital, he died. The cause? Starvation. Timo's father, devastated by his son's death, said in an emotional interview, "He was always searching for something bigger than himself. He wanted to believe that there was more to life than just the everyday grind. But this was not what we imagined. He changed, stopped coming to family dinners, stopped engaging with us. I miss him so much. I miss his laughter, his curiosity. But in the end, he was distant, like he was already gone before his body gave out. This belief, it consumed him." In 2012, Ricardo Gonzalez, a man in his mid-30s from California, died after attempting to follow the breatharian lifestyle. He had been a devoted follower of Jasmuheen's teachings and truly believed that he could live on prana alone. Like many others, he began by fasting, reducing his food intakes to juices, and eventually attempting to survive solely on air. His body couldn't take it. He died of malnutrition and dehydration. Ricardo's sister released a statement following his death, saying, "Ricardo was a strong man. He was always determined, always believed in something, but this belief led him down a dark path. He stopped coming to family gatherings, stopped talking to us about his real life. It was like he had left the real world behind. We miss him every day. We miss the way he used to joke, the way we could make everything seem lighter. But towards the end, there was no laughter, no light, just emptiness." Leila Catalano, a 62-year-old woman from Italy, died in 2008 after attempting a 21-day breatharian initiation fast. She had been influenced by Jasmuheen's teachings and, like many others, believed she could transcend the need for food and water. By the time she reached the second week of fasting, her health deteriorated rapidly. Her family, alarmed by her condition, called for medical help, but it was too late. She died of acute dehydration. Leila's son, devastated by his mother's death, described the last few months of her life in an interview. "She wasn't herself anymore. She was always so full of life, so vibrant. Then she started talking about living on air, and nothing we said could change her mind. She wouldn't listen, she wouldn't eat. It was like she had already left us before she passed away. I miss her every day. I miss the way she could fill the room with warmth, with love. But by the end, it was like she had become cold, detached. That belief system stole her from us." Michelle Franklin, a woman in her early 40s from New Zealand, passed away in 2005 after attempting to live on prana. Like others, she had followed the gradual detox process recommended by Jasmuheen, moving from solid foods to liquids and eventually quitting out everything. She believed that spiritual rewards would come, but instead her health failed. She was found in her apartment, weak and disoriented, too far gone by the time anyone realized what had happened. The cause of death: dehydration and starvation. A close friend of Michelle's family gave a brief interview, describing how Michelle had become increasingly isolated after embracing breatharianism. She was always searching for a spiritual answer, but we never thought it would lead to this. She stopped calling, stopped visiting. It was like she was trying to cut all ties to the world, and it broke our hearts. She used to be so full of life, so connected to her family, and then she wasn't anymore. We miss her. We miss the way she used to just be. The belief she followed, it took that away. Peter Strudel was a 50-year-old Austrian man who attempted to live solely on prana after reading Jasmuheen's books. In 2001, he embarked on a fast, isolating himself in his home in a rural area. His body, like the others, couldn't handle the extreme deprivation. He was found dead by his partner after weeks of following the breatharian regimen. The official cause was the same: malnutrition and dehydration. Peter's partner, who found his body after his death, gave a raw emotional interview where she said, "I tried to stop him. I begged him to eat, but he believed it so strongly. He thought this was the way to find peace, to find something more. I miss him every single day. I miss his smile, his warmth. But by the end, it was like he had already left me. He was distant, cold. That belief system, it took the man I loved, and in the end, it killed him." Many more lives were lost or severely impacted, their story less publicized, but no less real. People across the world, from Europe to America to Asia, have followed Jasmuheen's teachings to tragic ends. Some were saved before it was too late, rushed to hospitals by concerned family members, or found unconscious during their attempted fasts. Not all of them had names that made it to the papers, but their suffering was real. Each case ends with the same tragic outcome: death by starvation, dehydration, or related complications. And each time, Jasmuheen's response remains disturbingly consistent. She claims these people misunderstood her teachings or failed to reach the necessary spiritual enlightenment. She has never accepted responsibility for any of these deaths, always deflecting blame onto the environment of the victim's lack of faith. You think after a handful of deaths, someone might be held accountable. But no, Jasmuheen never convicted, never charged. Not for Lanny Morris, not for Verily Lynn, not for any of them. The law, it seems, has its hands tied, because here's the catch: every one of her followers shows this path. Voluntarily, mind you. They willingly starve themselves, believing they could rise above the needs of their own bodies, convinced they were stepping into the higher realm of existence. So when the authorities looked into these cases, there wasn't enough to make a charge stick. No murder, no manslaughter, just starvation. These were personal decisions, or at least that's how the system sees it. And Jasmuheen, she sidesteps it all with a remarkable ease, almost as if the deaths of her followers are little more than unfortunate hiccups. Legal actions, none. Accountability, well, that's another story. The families, they bury their loved ones while she carries on, calmly insisting that the victims were either unprepared or in the wrong environment. According to her, the air wasn't pure enough, not enough spiritual readiness, as if the dehydration had anything to do with the air quality outside your window. For justice for victims, not really. The victims have tried, some more vocal than others, calling for accountability, for someone to stop this madness before it claims more lives. But the law is frustratingly silent. In the eyes of the law, it's all very tragic, but not criminal. People make choices, even terrible ones. What now? Jasmuheen, at least for now, still floats through the spiritual community, preaching peace and love, and a little bit of not eating. She's shifted her focus slightly, talking more about global peace and self-sustainability, downplaying breatharianism, but never fully letting it go. Her books still sell. She still draws crowds, and the deaths, they linger in the background like a dark cloud, but they haven't stopped her. But choice is a funny thing, isn't it? It disguises itself as freedom, offering open doors and limited paths. Yet sometimes behind that shiny veneer, choice can be the most dangerous illusion of all. It whispers promises, nudges you towards the edge, and convinces you that you're the one in control until suddenly you're not. You think you're making a decision, but really, something else is pulling the strings, watching as you slip further and further away from solid ground. And by the time you realize it, well, maybe it's already too late. Until we meet again, remember, some mysteries brew deeper than you think. Bye!